Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Rikard Engberg, and I'm an equity research analyst here at Carnegie. With me, I have St Germain, CEO of Beyond Frames, who has reported the first quarter today. Welcome, Ace.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
So, can you just please briefly describe the development during the quarter?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've had a significant increase in revenues year over year. Obviously, primarily driven by one of our best-selling title, Ghosts of Tabor, relaunching onto the main store from early access. That was we had some incredible lift in sales there. So we were over 59 million in SEK in sales. And just for the folks watching at home, our sales do not include the store fees and the royalty splits with our publishing partners. So just to help contextualize a bit of our margins when you take a look at our numbers there. So it was considerable upside there, profitable in our EBITDA over 8 million there, and then profitable for the quarter overall, net profit thanks to some financial items and just overall good performance for the company.
Okay, great. And you are in the VR gaming space, and will it continue to show growth given the strong growth numbers from Meta Reality Labs that reported earlier this month?
Yeah, I believe they were 30% for them in the quarter in terms of increase. So I think what we're seeing from the market from Meta and other players is that their willingness to keep investing into the space the appetite's still fairly high. I would say that actually is what's different with our market, given that the XR market is still a growth market, whereas other more traditional spaces are a little bit more mature. The need to continue investing in here from our big partners is still fairly high, so they can achieve the goals that they have on the table. So yes, we absolutely still see growth in XR continuing, and we're very fortunate to be able to take advantage of that as we grow along with them.
Just to shed some light on this development, you quote a quite interesting industry report in your CEO words during the quarter. Can you just describe the statistic that you're showing?
Yeah, so there's some industry statistics out there that specifically focus on the growth of adoption of VR headsets among teenagers in the United States. It's a highly coveted demographic, especially when it comes to consumer electronics and just utility of products in general as a consumer focus. And when I started here, that same metric was slowly rising. And I think when I first saw it, everybody kind of brushed it off. It's like, oh, that's not interesting. That's not enough of an interesting number. Well, near on, over 2 years later, that number has now increased by like 5 or 6%. And so what we're seeing is that the adoption amongst teens is increasing year over year. Not only is it increasing amongst like the total number of teens, but the amount of times that they're using it weekly is starting to increase. And look, for me, and where I place my bets is if teenagers are using it, it's something that ends up becoming kind of a household thing, especially as generational change happens with our technology. And that's a really good sign for us and where the market's going.
Okay, great. And if we look on the strong sales number this quarter, which is the most important part of it, new games sold, or is it DLCs on existing games?
Definitely new games sold, probably as a whole. I mean, the DLC against games are still growing, and I think they've actually become a more significant portion of our total sales. But overall, I think the relaunch of the game was quite considerable. I think maybe the one thing we weren't as clear on when it comes to split is when we launched the game being Ghosts of Tabor, we did launch like a limited time special edition that had DLC attached to it. So we take a look at those metrics. DLC had an outsized portion of sales this quarter. But as that normalizes, that shouldn't be the case, but that because again of the limited time offering. But yeah, so I think overall it was the motivation from consumers was mostly around the purchase of a new game.
Okay, great. And if we look on Ghosts of Tabor, they are quite active community. How has that been developing during the quarter as the activity increased? Is there still demand for more?
Yeah, considerably. The activities increased not only on Discord. Now the studio's over 100,000 users inside of Discord. It obviously really incredible metric given their relative size to other Discords, especially in the first-person shooter space. It's quite large. And then beyond that, a cursory look at places like YouTube and Twitch and TikTok, and you can see an astounding amount of creators creating way more content around the game, which is obviously driven a lot by the fact that the downloadable content, both free and paid, that we continue to drop, pulls people back into the game. They re-engage with the communities and they create more content, which creates more community. So it continues to feed itself in a very healthy flywheel.
Yeah, great. And can you please discuss your release pipeline going forward after Ghost of Tabor?
Sure. Yeah. So we have 6 games across the group that are slated to come out. One of those is by one of our companies, Odd Raven, where we do not recognize their figures in our overall results, obviously, because we own them at 38%. However, obviously, as an asset value, we anticipate that being fairly strong. So that's one game. We have 3 additional games being developed by our studio Cortopia, which we have 100% ownership in. One of those is an owned IP. Another one of the 3 games is a sequel to one of the best-selling VR games of all time. We're pretty excited about partnering with the original studio on that. And then the 3rd game we're making is a unnamed large international intellectual property game, VR game that we're basing on that. So a lot of built-in audience across our studio portfolio, which is really strong. Additionally, we have 2 more games coming out from Combat Waffle, who made Ghost of Tabor. And again, that's extremely exciting to us because their audience is such a huge fan of the studio. They've already been promoting these games even well before alpha. We didn't even see this kind of traction with Ghost of Tabor. So not to be too directional, but the excitement around being able to see such an early fervor of activity around games that we've barely said anything about is obviously very promising for future promotion.
Okay, great. And you also sourced some external financing for those for a number of projects. Can you please describe the process of sourcing financing and how it helps you mitigate some of the risks within game development?
Yeah, sure. So one of the biggest new things I think we brought to the company over the last couple of years is a bit of product thinking and partnership management. And the combination of those 2 things means we just listen to a lot of our distributors a lot more, who had tons of data to talk a little bit more about what players were looking for, like where the markets were headed. And so what we try to do is meet the fans and users of VR where they were going. And so what we did was we developed prototypes and pitches and very fun playable demos for partners to play and effectively show them like how we were effectively meeting the market need for what they were also identifying as being important. And that just got everybody excited about wanting to help not only support these games going to market, but they believe in the upside in their returns on it too. So they wanted to get in on these games to receive some of the upside on the other end. So it's a really big part of our strategy here at Beyond Frames. The diversity of both consumer revenues and B2B revenues to help offset costs is a big part of how we think about diversifying our portfolio. And so we hope to continue doing that. So not only is the 58.4 million crowns that we've secured for these 3 Cortopia projects, that's to me just the start. We hope to continue doing many more of these types of deals at larger volumes in the future.
Okay, great. Ace, thank you for dialing in and talk to us here at Carnegie.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you everyone who has been watching.